Thank you. Good morning everyone. Today my topic is sedentary physiology. So sedentary, I think most of us, are we all sedentary? Okay, let's start. Sedentary. The relationship between sedentary behavior and deleterious health consequences was noted in the 17th century itself by a physician named Bernardino Ramazzini. So from 17th century itself, people were saying sedentary behavior and ill health are related to each other. It is not a recent one what they have said, it is from the 17th century. Next. So what is sedentary behavior? What is activity? So emerging evidence, latest evidence suggests that sedentary behavior as distinct from a lack of moderate to vigorous physical activity. So if you are not doing moderate to vigorous physical activity, that means we are sedentary. Our behaviors are sedentary. So to say that we are active, we should have moderate to vigorous physical activity. So it is said as MVPA, moderate to vigorous physical activity, MVPA. So how do we measure this MVPA? MVPA can be expressed as METs. METs means metabolic equivalent tasks. So oxygen utilization can also be expressed as METs. So oxygen utilization or this METs, anything can say whether we are active or we are sedentary. Now, physical activity, how much physical activity one needs? So, at least if we are saying we should have, according to their definition, we should have moderate to vigorous physical activity. So, moderate activity intensity means if you have 3 METs, equal to 3 METs or more than 3 METs, we fall under moderate intensity. So, light activity means less than 3 METs and more than 1.5 METs is light activity. So, light activity means your life embedded activities like going to the washroom, having breakfast, little movements. So, your life embedded activities. Those are all light activity. And sedentary behavior means we are doing nothing, absolutely nothing. We are sitting. That is sedentary behavior when we have less than or equivalent to 1.5 METs. So, according to the latest study, we should have at least 3 METs or more. Moderate is 3 METs or more, and vigorous activity means it could be even more than 5 METs. Okay, so moderate intensity or vigorous activity one should have so that we do not fall under sedentary behavior. Okay, so sedentary physiology, see, sleep, sedentary behavior, light activity, moderate physical activity and intense exercise. So for us to fall under active physical life, you should have METs moderate to vigorous. So that will give you plus side. The others are all sleep, sedentary behavior, they are all minus activities. So we should fall in last 2 category to say that we are active. Next, how do you measure sedentary behavior? Sedentary behavior can be measured by FIT formula. FIT formula. What is FIT formula? It will describe us the frequency. F is frequency, I is the intensity, T is the time and type of activity is the other T. So frequency, whatever activity you are doing, how frequently are you doing it? That is the frequency. Intensity means how many energy, how much energy has been expended by that activity. That is the intensity. Time, duration, how long are you doing that activity, and type of activity. Type of activity, let's say there are major 3 or 4 types of activities. One is aerobic activity, where your heart rate goes up, like doing a treadmill in a gym. That is aerobic activity or cardio. The other is muscle strengthening activity. Muscle strengthening activity means lifting weights, or doing some resistant band, doing some exercises, or push-ups, then your squats, sit-ups. All these are we are increasing a muscle strength, muscle strengthening activity. And the next one is bone strengthening activity. Bone strengthening activity, what comes under bone strengthening activity? Your walking, jogging, trekking, swimming, dancing, all these are bone strengthening activity. And other one is stretching activity, which will increase our mobility. It will increase stretching exercises. They will increase the mobility. So we can divide into this type of activity. So what type of activity are you doing? And how frequently are you doing that? And how many calories are you burning with that activity? And how long are you doing that? So all this is the FIT formula. So if you have to compare that, we should compare the same formula with your sedentary behavior. That is a SIT formula. SIT formula is sedentary behavior. So SIT is how many S is sedentary behavior. So how many bouts, number of bouts of certain duration you are sitting. Supposing if you take 30 minutes bouts in a day, how many times with 30 minutes duration are you sitting? So number of bouts of certain duration. Interruptions. While interruptions means while you are watching TV, how many times are you getting up? That is the interruptions. Time. How many times? What's the total duration of your sitting behavior? That's the time. Type, how do I say type means? So in sedentary behavior, what type I can say? A type is whether you are watching TV or playing some games on a computer or you are driving to work. All these are type of activities. So FIT and SIT. So METs are used to count the energy expenditure. So I said intensity of exercise. So METs are used to count the energy expenditure. So running will give us, supposing say running for half an hour to 40 minutes will give us 8 minutes. Moderate pace walking will give us 3 to 4 minutes. Sedentary behavior is less than 1.5 minutes. So for us not to fall under the sedentary behavior, we should have at least 3 minutes and above. So moderate pace walking also will do. Now, this is supposing a normal routine of a person, of an adult or youngster, whatever, who is working. So he gets up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Then purposefully he is going on purpose to do exercise for half an hour. Brisk walk is doing for half an hour, 30 minutes. Then he is having breakfast for 15 minutes. Then he is going to work, driving his car and going to work for 45 minutes. Then he is on the computer, supposing IT guy, he is working on computer for 3.5 hours. Then he is breaking for lunch for 30 minutes. Again he is working on computer for 4 hours. Then again he is coming back from work to home, another 45 minutes driving. So again he is having his dinner for half an hour. Then he is watching TV for 4 hours. Then he is sleeping around 11 in the night. So this is just an example. So is actually exercising only for half an hour. His sitting opportunities are for 15.5 hours. But that half an hour also, because he is doing brisk walk for 30 minutes, he is following the latest guidelines, health guidelines. He is following the latest health guidelines because he is doing 3 or more than 3 minutes of activity. So he is following the latest health guidelines. So what is the definition of sedentary behavior? Sedentary behavior at present is inconsistent in research literature. Some say sedentary behavior because they are not physically active. That's one sort of definition. People who are not physically active, they say they are sedentary. Others classify as sedentary when they are engaging in particular activities. Whatever activity they are engaging, they are consuming very low calories, low energy expenditure. So supposing playing a board game, so you are sitting, so that type of activities which consume low energy. So some people classify like that. The activities whatever they are doing consume low energy. So Merriam-Webster dictionary defines sedentary as, our dictionary defines sedentary as doing or requiring much sitting and also being physically not active. So these have different sort of definitions. And other definition, what does the Harvard definition say? Harvard alumni study classified men who expended less than 2000 kilocalories per week. If you are spending less than 2000 kilocalories per week, though you are walking little bit, you are climbing stairs, playing some sport, all this, but you are consuming less than 2000 kilocalories in week, that is called sedentary according to Harvard study, Harvard alumni study. So different people have classified it in a different way. But one thing is certain thing is your energy expenditure is low in sedentary behavior. Okay, sedentary behavior, what do we do in those sedentary behavior? Sedentary behavior includes car time, means going to work, coming back, or going to a movie, eating out, all this car time. Chair time is sitting on the chair, couch potato. Chair time. Indoor time, you are staying indoor, either you are chatting with someone, talking, doing nothing much. Okay, indoor time. Screen time is here, I would say, screen time is both your TV time and the computer time is your screen time. Attending a meeting, talking on phone, playing a board game, reading, driving, lying on the couch. All these are your sedentary behavior. Okay, it is that behavior where energy expenditure is low. So how do you measure the sedentary behavior? It's very complicated measuring the sedentary behavior. Though many techniques have been, it's easy to measure the physical activity. Such as, how do you measure the physical activity? Such as movement sensors. Your Fitbit, by gauging your heart rate monitors are there. Doubly labeled, what means isotope based methods. Isotopes are injected, isotope based methods will show how active you are. So it's easy to measure the physical activity, but it is difficult to measure the sedentary activity. To measure the sedentary behavior, accelerometers have been used. Accelerometers. What are these accelerometers? Accelerometers are small electronic devices which are hung to our hip. You put that device onto the hip and you download this onto a computer for detailed analysis. So you download onto a computer and you see how much sedentary behavior we had for that day. So what does they monitor? Accelerometers allow detailed data on volume and intensity of most movements. Volume and intensity of most movements, sedentary movements only. Volume and intensity of most movements. Accelerometers describe not only the amount of movement that an individual has undertaken, but also the intensity, duration for that movement, how much energy we have expended. Also the intensity of the movement, duration of that movement, frequency, how many times we are following that movement, and patterns of the movement. So all this accelerometers you download onto a computer and you get the detailed analysis. So accelerometers are used to measure the sedentary behavior. In that sedentary behavior also we can know the intensity, duration, frequency and pattern of the movements. So here is one example what the accelerometer has recorded. Now you can see some unfilled circles, that white color circles are there. So that person is most of the time he is sitting and suddenly there is one spike in that unfilled circles. Unfilled circles means, I would say after lunch he has gone for a walk and again is coming and most of the time is sitting. Those unfilled circles, okay. So it's called as active couch potato most of the time, but one active session he had. So he is active couch potato. Look at those black rectangles. Those black rectangle person is not sitting, he is not on the couch, he is moving about a little bit and look at his spikes now and then. So he is called an active non-couch potato because he is active, he is not sitting ideally, he is doing little bit of movements are there, though they are for brief movement, he is doing little bit of movements. So he is called active non-couch potato. So, but both these people, active couch potato and active non-couch potato, both are following our latest health guidelines. Both of them are meeting more than 3 METs. So they are following the latest health guidelines. They are having the METs are 3 or more than 3. Though energy expenditure might differ in each person, but they are following the latest health guidelines. Next. Pattern. I said accelerometers will show you the pattern. Look at this, all dark circles. These are all sedentary time they are sitting. accelerometers not only tell us the total duration of how long we are sitting in a day, but patterns of sitting, whether we are sitting more in the morning or evening. So these dark circles or dark bars are all sedentary. So this is called a prolonger, means this person is sitting most of the time in a day. He is a prolonger. Breaker, this person is not sitting like a prolonger. He is breaking, though briefly. He is getting up and doing little bit of light activity is there. So he is a breaker. So this also can be shown on the accelerometers. Not only the duration of sedentary time in a day, but the patterns. When are we sitting most, whether it is in the morning, afternoon, evening, or so he is a prolonger and a breaker. So these patterns can be recorded on the accelerometers. Next, physiological effects of sedentary behavior. So what will happen when we are sitting, when we are doing less than 1.5 minutes? What toll it takes on our body? So it is cardiometabolic markers. Cardiometabolic markers means they will increase the triglyceride levels. It will decrease the level of HDL, good lipoproteins. So it decreases the level of HDL. It decreases the insulin sensitivity. All this is because of it is mediated via lipoprotein lipase activity. So all this is mediated via lipoprotein lipase activity. What is the function of this lipoprotein? Lipoprotein does is uptake of free fatty acids into skeletal muscle and adipose tissue. Because we are not doing anything, the lipoprotein activity has decreased. It has been shown in a study, if you are taking rest completely on a bed for 11 days, this lipoprotein lipase activity has decreased by 18%. So imagine the more the number of days, how much the lipoprotein lipase activity decreases. So whenever we are active, this lipoprotein levels increases. LPL level increases by increasing your mRNA levels. So a person who is sedentary, his carbohydrate metabolism is also affected by your glut muscle proteins. So increase in physical activity will increase the glut muscle protein and also your glucose tolerance. So you should get up and do something. On bone health, what can we see on bone health? Reduction in the bone mass. There is the change in the balance between bone resorption and deposition. So the bone resorption is quite evident by the studies. Deposition, though they have not, concomitant changes of deposition have not been seen, but resorption, bone resorption, there was increase in the bone resorption. There was lot of bone resorption in sedentary behavior. So there is increased risk of osteoporosis. So increased risk of osteoporosis on bone health if you are sedentary. Next, on vascular health, reactive hyperemia. I told you what reactive hyperemia is. Whenever arterial supply has been obstructed for 5 minutes and you remove that obstruction, there will be increased blood flow to the muscle and the skin. So this will show us your peripheral vascular health. So this will show us the peripheral vascular health. So this has been reduced. So it has been observed that 30% to the upper limbs and 20% of blood reduction will be there onto the lower limbs. And there was increased BP and decrease in the brachial artery diameter. Decrease in the brachial artery diameter is 5 days of bed rest. If 5 days of bed rest also will decrease the brachial artery diameter. Okay, so whenever diameter is decreased, peripheral resistance will increase. So BP will increase, and it also showed decrease in the endothelium dependent vasodilation. Endothelial cells vasodilation occurs, so that also was decrease in the endothelium dependent vasodilation, and increase in the endothelial cell damage after 56 days of bed rest. So after 56 days of bed rest, the vascular health also deteriorates. So this was also studied. Next, sedentary behavior and obesity. So sedentary behavior and obesity, increase in 2 hours per day viewing time of TV was associated with 23% increase in obesity. If you are increase your TV time by 2 hours, whatever you are seeing, and if you increase it by another 2 hours a day watching TV, your obesity will increase by 23%. And also, increased viewing time of TV was associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, acute coronary syndrome, metabolic syndrome, abnormal glucose tolerance, and increase with waist circumference. So all this were noted. So if you increase whatever you are seeing, and on top of it you increase your TV time by another 2 hours, all these effects were studied. So why usually TV time is always sedentary behavior means they usually measure it with your TV time. So sedentary behavior and cancer. High levels of TV or video watching is associated with increased risk of colon cancer in men and endometrial and ovarian cancer in women. So sedentary behavior, with sedentary behavior you can expect these 2 types of cancers. Okay. So they are sedentary behavior and cancer, high level of TV watching with increased risk of colon cancer in men and endometrial and ovarian cancer in women. Now, sedentary behavior and psychosocial health. Evidence suggests that increase in physical activity improves our mental health and psychosocial outcomes. So, here a small example. Women who is sedentary, who is accumulating less than 5,000 steps per day compared to a woman accumulating more than 7,500 steps per day have 50% lower prevalence of depression. 50%. See, if you are sitting and doing nothing, idle mind is devil's mind, they say. You do nothing sitting at home, then you end up in depression. So women accumulating 7,500 steps per day have 50% lower prevalence of depression compared to women taking less than 5,000 steps per day. So how sedentary behavior affects not only your cardiovascular, it affects overall health. So, early TV exposure, look at this. When sedentary behaviors are examined, the most commonly measured is TV viewing time. TV viewing time, whenever we are not only sitting, and again we sit and eat also. That is even added disadvantage. So, whenever sedentary behaviors are examined, the most commonly measured is TV viewing time. So, exposure of TV before age of 3 is associated with attention problems. They can't focus on a thing. Attention problems, language and cognitive development means mental assessment, cognitive development. So your thinking, your knowledge, your judgment, everything will be impacted. So language and cognitive development, deleterious effects on reading, recognition, comprehension and memory we are seeing. So people, students, a kid who is addicted to TV less than 3 years of age will have all this deleterious effects. It showed strong evidence linking TV exposure or media exposure with obesity, tobacco use and violence. All these are the papers which have been published. So the important ones I have taken it. So moderate relationship between media exposure. So moderate relationship they have seen between the media exposure and drug use. And drug use, alcohol use, low academic achievement and sexual behavior, non-attainment of university degree, means lot of students will be college dropouts, reduced self-image and aggressive behaviors. So they saw the strong evidence between media exposure with obesity, but moderate relationship between media exposure and all this. So person who is, instead of sedentary, if he does little bit of physical activity, his mentally his self-image and his efficacy will improve. Population prevalence, it was studied. Population prevalence of sedentary behavior. Accelerometer derived sedentary time reported that through accelerometers they have studied the sedentary behavior a lot of individuals in America. Then they found that American children and adults spend on average 54.9% of their working hours sedentary, almost close to 55% of their waking hours. So waking hours means you are supposing you are getting up at 7 or 8 in the morning till night 11, 55% of this time has been spent on watching TV. So American Academy of Pediatrics recommended that children and youth spend no more than 2 hours a day in front of screens. So children and youth should not spend more than 2 hours a day in front of screens per day. Then nowadays, because of this, computers have come, so rapid proliferation of computer ownership and use, it is important to consider and measure total screen time. So total screen time is your TV time and your computer time. It should be total screen time, not just don't only take only the TV viewing time into consideration. Okay, so physiological principles of lifestyle modifications. How do you come out of the sedentary behavior? What lifestyle modifications one needs to make? One is the diet and second is the exercise. Okay, so diet, I am not going to the details of diet. The second is the exercise. Exercise. So all this like weightlifting, running, jogging, skipping, trekking, anything you can take up. So what are the effects of exercise? Effects of exercise on cardiovascular system. So whenever we are exercising, our heart rate. So for a trained individual, I said whenever I was taking some class regarding heart rate, I guess. So low resting heart rate because you are increased vagal tone, because you are exercising, you are training, because of your training, a vagal tone will increase. Vagal tone will increase means your heart rate will decrease. What is the advantage if the heart rate is decreased? Whatever exercise you are doing, your heart rate can, your range can increase through that. Supposing your heart rate is only 50. So up to 80, 90, 100, your range is much more than the person who is not trained. So low resting heart rate because of increased vagal tone. So higher resting stroke volume. So whenever you are exercising regularly, what will happen? There will be cardiac hypertrophy, cardiac muscle strength, cardiac muscle mass increases. So your end-diastolic volume increases. So stroke volume increases. So increased stroke volume and decreased heart rate, you will get a good cardiac output compared to person who is not exercising. So these are the cardiovascular effects of exercise. Then what are the effects of exercise and RS? So on respiratory system, it will increase the maximal O2 consumption, VO2 consumption. It will increase the maximal O2 consumption. It will increase the maximal minute ventilation. It will increase the pulmonary oxygen diffusion capacity because of increase in pulmonary capillaries. Pulmonary capillaries will increase. So the exchange of gases from the lungs through the respiratory membrane into the capillaries will increase. So increase in pulmonary oxygen diffusion capacity. All this will increase on the respiratory system. Next, what are the effects of exercise on the skeletal muscles? Skeletal muscles, it will increase. If you see a person who is really going to the gym or working out regularly, look at his muscle strength. So there will be increase in the muscle strength due to increase in the muscle mass. His muscle mass will increase. This muscle mass is increased because of there is increase in the size of the muscle fiber. Muscle fiber size will increase, not because the number of muscle fibers have increased. That is hypertrophy of the muscle, because it will increase the size of the muscle fiber. That is hypertrophy. If you increase the number of muscle fibers, it is called hyperplasia. So it is hypertrophy is happening because the size of the muscle fibers will increase. So whenever muscle fibers are increased, it will extract more oxygen. How? By increasing the capillary network. So as whatever capillaries which are not even functioning when you are exercising, they all open up. So increase in the capillary network, increasing the number of mitochondria in the muscle fibers, increasing the mitochondrial enzymes. It will increase your muscle glycogen stores. It will increase in your stored triglycerides. All this will increase on the skeletal muscles. Then, so what are the benefits of exercise? I have not written much. benefits of exercise, it will slow the aging process. So your degenerative changes, your metabolic changes will definitely slow down if you are exercising over a longer period of time for a lot number of years. Metabolic effects and your degenerative changes, it will definitely slow down with exercise. Feel better. So because this feel better is because of your endorphins are released during exercise, and this will decrease your mental stress, and you feel like you feel well, feel good factor. Okay, then there will be reducing the insulin requirement. So what will happen, as you know, there are some glut receptors on the skeletal muscle. So this usually insulin is needed for the glucose to get into the muscle, but when you are exercising, even in the absence of insulin, this glucose will enter. So this is very good for diabetes. So reduces the insulin requirement. Okay. So studies have also shown that it will decrease the incidence and severity of myocardial infarction. So lot of benefits for exercise. So you better don't be a couch potato. You better get up and do some exercise. That is the takeaway message for today. You should take out some time to exercise. Every day we have something or the other, but you need to take out time, particular time in a day, and start exercising. It's not too late. Even now you can start exercise and see all the benefits. Yeah, that's it from me.
ఇది అన్నారు, ఇది అన్నట్టున్నారు.
అవునా?